up until now, everything we've been doing has been in the command window, just giving a single command, pressing enter, and seeing what comes out of it. But now we want to get into more of the scripting or the programming part of Matlab, where we can give it a series of commands to do in order. So instead of working within the command window for this, I want to open up a script or a programming window. So we can go and press New up here to create a new script, or press Control-N. And the first thing I'm going to do is save it, and this is what's going to save an M file. So this is the folder that I'm working in, so I want I'll call this L01 for lecture 1, and I'll save it. So this way, any of the things I type in here, I can save it as an M file, and I can come back later and edit what I wrote. And this is what's going to be helpful for doing your homework, because you're going to be giving it a series of commands to do, I presume. Usually when I'm working in a script, the first thing I want to do at the top is I want to clear out anything that's in the workspace so I'm not accidentally using like old values when I'm doing new calculations. So I often start with this CLC to clear the screen. I do a clear all to clear out my workspace from whatever I was working on before. And what I can do is I can save this, and to run the entire M file or the entire script, I want to click in my editor window, and if I push F5, it's going to run that entire command. So again, if I go back into my command window here and start typing things, now if I go into the editor and I run this sequence of commands, which will be clear screen and clear all my variables, if I press F5, or I can come up here and press run, we see it runs those two things in sequence, the clear screen and then the clear all. So if I come down here, we see it's automatically labeling line numbers for us. I can give it more things to do in my script. So combining what we looked at before, I can define a vector I'll call t that will be a linspace between 0 and 15. And I'll give it 100 values here. And then what I can do is I can take the sign of each of those values and save it into this vector y. So now if I run this entire script, I'll push F5. It's made this vector t, which is 100 elements, and this vector y, which is 100 elements, which is the sign of all the values that I had in t. Now you can see it's giving me these error messages, and this is a very nice feature of Matlab, is that it can detect errors or problems with your script and help you out trying to resolve them. So what it's saying here, if we see how I wrote this, like I did before in the command window, what I can do is, if I highlight this line, and if I press F9, or if I right-click it and I say Evaluate Selection, it will only run that line. So I'm just running that t is the 100 elements between 0 and 15. But what I can do is it prints it to the command window, what those 100 values are. But if I go back to my editor, if I put a semicolon at the end of that line, and now let's run the entire script. If I scroll up here in my command window, it cleared the screen, it cleared all my old workspace out, but that semicolon suppressed the printing of the values of t. So it still ran the command, it's still storing those values into the variable I called t, but it's not printing it in the command window. However, because that line 5 is not suppressed, y equals sign of t, it is still printing that. So oftentimes when I'm running through these things, if I know it's working properly, I might want to suppress it. So now if I go up here, if I run my script with both lines 3 and 5 suppressed, and press F5, it's still doing those commands, I'm just not seeing it happen. So now if I come down to my command window and I want to see what's the value in y, we see that those values in y are still there. It just didn't print it when we were doing that command. Another feature we have in the editor is we can go into what's called cell mode by using this double equal sign here, and this is kind of breaks your code into sections. And you can give it a name here. I'll call it part 2. Actually, I'll make this a cell up top. I'll call this part 1. So here, I'll define something x. I'll take the square root of all the elements in t in part 2. Now, I'll unsuppress line 5 now. All right, so we can see that when we're in cell mode, what we can do is instead of running, we have the ability to, instead of running the entire script, which still works, so if I press F5, it's going to make t, it's going to print out the value of y, and it's going to print out the value of x. But let me clear all that stuff out. What I can also do is if I see here, now that I'm in cell mode, we see that it has this yellow background in this section, and as I come down here, it highlights this section in yellow. What cell mode lets me do is whatever section is highlighted in yellow, if I press on the keyboard, hold Control and press Enter, it runs just the things that are highlighted with yellow and nothing else. So here it made what Y was, and then it stopped. If I come down here in my editor, and I can see now in this section that part 2 is highlighted in yellow, and I press Control Enter, it'll run just what's in this script where it says part 2. So it only ran the command that x is the square root of t. And I can suppress these. I can run the whole thing. Again, it's still running, putting this values in for y, putting in values for x as I'm going here. An important thing, especially when we have multiple M files a little bit later on, is making sure that everything is in the same folder here. Now, I'm working in the same folder that my script is saved in, but if you're in doubt, if you right-click on the title here, it's grayed out for me, but we can change the current folder to whatever folder the M file is stored in. If we're working in a different folder, it's not going to understand what we're trying to do at that point. Another thing we can do within our script that's going to help us out later is we can add comments to our code. Now, when we add a comment, it's not actually going to run that, but when we or someone else looks at our code, they're going to be able to understand more what we did. So to add a comment to our code, we use a single %, and then we can make a comment. So for example, in line number 5, what this line does, it's going to find the sign of t and assign it to y. So you see that in MATLAB it's green here. It's not actually running this because it's not going to understand our the sentence that we wrote, but we are going to be able to interpret what it means. And again, by using that %, it doesn't run that. It's only for our benefit when we come back later to see what is it doing. So if we run this, it's not running those lines that we commented. It's only running these lines in black here when we run it through. So now running it through, I made g the cosine of t, y the sine of t, and x the square root of t.